Martin Luther King Jr. was one of America's most influential civil rights activists. His passionate, but non-violent protests helped to raise awareness of racial inequalities in America, leading to significant political change. Martin Luther King was also an eloquent orator who captured the imagination and hearts of people, both black and white. Martin Luther King was born in Atlanta on the 15th of January 1929. Both his father and grandfather were pastors in an African American Baptist church. Martin Luther King attended Morehouse College in Atlanta, segregated schooling, and then went to study at Crosser Theological Seminary in Pennsylvania and Boston University. During his time at university, Martin Luther King became aware of the vast inequality and injustice faced by black Americans. In particular, he was influenced by Gandhi's philosophy of nonviolent protest. The philosophy of Gandhi tied in with the teachings of his Baptist faith. At the age of 24, King married Coretta Scott, a beautiful and talented young woman. After getting married, King became a pastor at Dexter Avenue Baptist Church in Montgomery, Alabama. A turning point in the life of Martin Luther King was the Montgomery bus boycott, which he helped to promote. His boycott also became a turning point in the civil rights struggle, attracting national press for the cause. It began in innocuous circumstances on the 5th of December 1955. Rosa Parks, a civil rights activist, refused to give up her seat. She was sitting in a white-only area. This broke the strict segregation of colored and white people on the Montgomery buses. The bus company refused to back down, and so Martin Luther King helped to organize a strike where colored people refused to use any of the city buses. The boycott lasted for several months. The issue was then brought to the Supreme Court, who declared the segregation was unconstitutional. After the success of the Montgomery bus boycott, King and other ministers founded the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, SCLC. This proved to be a nucleus for the growing civil rights movement. Later there would be arguments about the best approach to take. In particular, the 1960s saw the rise of the Black Power movement, epitomized by Malcolm X and other black nationalist groups. However, King always remained committed to the ideals of nonviolent struggle. Martin Luther King was an inspirational and influential speaker. He had the capacity to move and uplift his audiences. In particular, he could offer a vision of hope. He captured the injustice of the time, but also felt that this injustice was like a passing cloud. King frequently made references to God, the Bible, and his Christian faith. And this is what Jesus means when he said, "How is it that you can see the mote in your brother's eye, and not see the beam in your own eye?" Or to put it in Moffat's translation, "How is it that you see the splinter in your brother's eye and fail to see the plank in your own eye?" And this is one of the tragedies of human nature. So we begin to love our enemies and love those persons that hate us, whether in collective life or individual life, by looking at ourselves. His speeches were largely free of revenge, instead focusing on the need to move forward. He was named as Man of the Year by Time magazine in 1963. It followed his famous and iconic, "I Have a Dream" speech, delivered in Washington during a civil rights march. "I have a dream that one day this nation will rise up and live out the true meaning of its creed. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal. "I have a dream that one day on the red hills of Georgia, the sons of former slaves and the sons of former slave owners will be able to sit down together at a table of brotherhood." The following year, Martin Luther King was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize for his work towards social justice. King announced he would turn over the prize money $54,123 to the civil rights movement. With the prestige of the Nobel Prize, King was increasingly consulted by politicians such as Lyndon Johnson. However, King's opposition to the Vietnam War did not endear him to the Johnson administration. King also began receiving increased scrutiny from the authorities, such as the FBI. On Thursday, April 4, 1968, King was staying in room 306 at the Lorraine Motel in Memphis. The motel was owned by businessman Walter Bailey and was named after his wife. Reverend Ralph Abernathy, a colleague and friend, later told the House Select Committee on Assassinations that he and King had stayed in room 306 at the Lorraine Motel so often that it was known as the King-Abernathy Suite. According to biographer Taylor Branch, King's last words were to musician Ben Branch, who was scheduled to perform that night at a planned event. King said, "Ben, make sure you play Take My Hand, Precious Lord, in the meeting tonight. Play it real pretty." According to Reverend Samuel Kiles, who was standing several feet away, King was leaning over the balcony railing in front of room 306 and was speaking with Reverend Jesse Jackson when the shot rang out. King was struck in the face at 6:01 p.m. by a single .3006 bullet fired from a Remington Model 760 rifle. The bullet entered through King's right cheek, breaking his jaw and several vertebrae as it traveled down his spinal cord, severing his jugular vein and major arteries in the process, before lodging in his shoulder. The force of the shot ripped King's necktie off. King fell backward onto the balcony, unconscious. King was rushed to St. Joseph's Hospital, where doctors opened his chest and performed cardiopulmonary resuscitation. He never regained consciousness and died at 7:05 p.m. According to Branch, King's autopsy revealed that his heart was in the condition of a 60-year-old man rather than that of a 39-year-old such as King, which Branch attributed to the stress of King's 13 years in the civil rights movement. Shortly after the shot was fired, witnesses saw a man, later believed to be James Earl Ray, fleeing from a rooming house across the street from the Lorraine Motel. Ray had been renting a room in the boarding house. Police found a package dumped close to the site that included a rifle and binoculars, both with Ray's fingerprints. Ray had purchased the rifle under an alias 6 days earlier. A worldwide manhunt was triggered that culminated in Ray's arrest at Heathrow Airport, London, 2 months later. On March 10, 1969, he pleaded guilty to the first-degree murder of Martin Luther King Jr., which was later recanted.